Street Fighter IV, Braggadocio off and online. Norman Makoto Department of Informatics, University of California, Irvine, California, 92697-3440 USA. Nomsu at ics.uci.edu. Permission to make digital or hard copies of all or part of this work for personal or classroom use is granted without fee, provided that copies are not made or distributed for profit or commercial advantage and that copies bear this notice and the full citation on the first page. To copy otherwise or republish, to post on servers or to redistribute to lists requires prior specific permission and/or a fee. CSCW 2010, February 6 to 10, 2010, Savannah, Georgia, USA. Copyright 2010 ACM 978-1-60558-795-0-1002 $10.00. Abstract. In its heyday, the video arcade was a social scene to prove one's video gaming prowess. The introduction of a revolutionary head-to-head fighting game called Street Fighter II in 1991 ushered in an era of competitive video gaming with unparalleled complexity. An influx of copycat games and the arrival of consoles with capabilities rivaling coin-ops led to the arcade's demise. However, the release of Street Fighter IV, SF4, has brought about a revival. I report on the cultural practices of hardcore gaming that have revolved around SF4. SF4's release on both the console, which enables fighting others online, and the arcade has engendered a new set of challenges in constructing what it means to be competitive and legitimate in the world of head-to-head fighting games. I observe that the enrollment of an ecology of technological artifacts allows players to translate Braggadocio from the arcade, a central phenomenon in competitive gaming. Introduction. According to Capcom's May 2009 financial report at 12, Street Fighter II, SF2, for the Super Nintendo was its best-selling game ever, selling over 6.3 million units. SF2 allowed one to choose from 8 international fighters such as Honda-1, the sumo wrestler from Japan, or Dhalsim, the yoga master from India. It offered unparalleled complexity, the closest game genre at the time, smash 'em ups, featuring side 1. I will use SMALLCAPS to designate character names from the Street Fighter, SF, series. Scrolling fighters beating up opponents usually had only 2 to 3 buttons. SF2, in contrast, was a head-to-head fighting game offering 3 separate punch buttons, jab, strong, fierce, and 3 separate kick buttons, short, forward, roundhouse. Moreover, it introduced special moves requiring execution with joystick movements of unheralded intricacy. For example, SF2's signature character, Ryu, can throw a fireball at his opponent by moving the joystick a quarter circle towards the opponent and then pressing a punch button. The punch button determines the speed of the fireball. The establishment of this genre of video games brought about a new wave of competitive gaming. Competition used to mean vying for the top of the scoreboard. Games like Donkey Kong emphasized seemingly inhuman timing and memorization. However, SF2 allowed one to claim superiority by simply saying, "I beat you." There was no prescribed set of steps to win against a human opponent. And, like any other legitimate sport, head-to-head fighting games required reading your opponent and reacting appropriately. Soon, national and international championships were organized, and superstar players such as Seth Killian, Daigo Imahara, Alex Vale, and Justin Wong became revered in gaming circles. Due to SF2's immense popularity, a whole crop of head-to-head games appeared, most infamously, the bloody Mortal Kombat. Capcom itself was not immune to churning out fighting games. SF2 had over 5 different iterations released, such as SF2 Champion Edition, Super SF2 Turbo, and Hyper SF2. The next game in the series was eagerly awaited, and in 1997 Street Fighter III, SF3, was finally released. SF3 added further to SF2's complexity, incorporating a new parry system allowing players with good timing to deflect their opponent's attacks. Unfortunately, many felt that Capcom had made SF3 out of the realm for normal and casual gamers. As a result, SF3 did not translate to the same arcade and console sales as SF2. Seth Killian observed at GameSpy.com, "Parries were a sort of the hallmark of SF3, it's really a hard thing to pull off. When you finally master it, it brings you very close to the game, but you've got to probably put in 6 months before you're even competent at parrying. And that's really rough." According to Yoshinori Ono, producer of Street Fighter IV, SF4, there was some doubt as to the viability of a new Street Fighter, 1UP.com. To start out, at the very beginning the prevailing atmosphere around here was that there would be no SF4. Everyone had given up on the idea because too much time had passed since SF3. Certainly a lot of time had passed since SF2, which was the last really popular one. What we were actually thinking was, can the Capcom of today, even legitimately from a business point of view, even justify making fighting games right now? Does that fit into our business model? Does that fit into what Capcom is today? So there was a bit of resistance at first. Emphasis added. Indeed, the issue of legitimacy is at the heart of this paper. SF4 represents a deliberate attempt by Capcom to cater to both novice and hardcore players. In addition, its release, July 2008, comes at a time quite different than SF2's time. The advent of multiple communication mediums through the internet and the console has given players more options to level up and banter with each other. While SF2 players were often geographically restricted in finding competition, meeting at their homes or in the arcade, consoles now allow online play with anyone that has an internet connection. On one hand, the nostalgic flavor of SF4, which takes cues from SF2 more than it does from SF3, has brought oldies back to the genre. On the other hand, its relatively low learning curve and wide release on both the PlayStation 3, PS3, and Xbox 360 consoles has attracted newbies to the genre. Intimately intertwined with legitimacy is its discourse. A discourse actively maps out a terrain of possible and valid statements, sets the boundaries of that terrain and constitutes the legitimate objects of study within it. 3. In this paper, I examine the discourse of hardcore SF4 gamers who seek to establish a discipline. More specifically, I am interested in how players endeavor to legitimize SF4 as the new game for competitive head-to-head gaming. Like sports, competitive gaming cannot survive without spectators. And, like sports, gamers often seek to construct and enforce rules and policies that reinforce what they believe proper play is. How are actors enrolled to strengthen the position of professional gamers as the spokespersons? Actors may be other players, but they can include a myriad of computer-mediated communication. Secondly, how has the addition of online functional ID changed the face of fighting games? How have constituents attempted to transplant a traditionally offline world into the online world? Related work. In an overview of video game research, Williams notes, 14, that early studies often focused on examining the popular media's framing of the video arcade as a seedy, dark place for adolescent delinquency. However, in a meta-analysis of literature, Ferguson, 6, found little evidence that violent games led to aggression in behavior. Narratives instead reveal the arcade as a subculture supporting hanging out with friends, exchanging strategies, collapsing racial and financial inequalities, and reifying sportsmanship practices. 14.7. Recent research 11.13 has importantly noted that most HCI-CSCW research has focused on interaction in the game, example, World of Warcraft 5, rather than the social aspects surrounding the actual console itself. Voida and Greenberg's 13 research found the console to be a harmonious hub for meeting in the digital hearth. 8. Some informants reported choosing platforms for people, not gamers, to allow everyone to have fun. Input devices with a lot of buttons were generally rejected as having too much of a learning curve and requiring button mashing for groups of gamers with a breadth of expertise levels. The authors also note that groups often preferred games that were not competitive. Sol and Greinter, 11, discovered tensions with consoles' visibility, keeping the family room tidy, and availability, being at hand to play, in the digital hearth. Similarly, they note that physical games such as Dance Dance Revolution encourage multiple players of varied skill levels to social performance, again de-emphasizing the competitive aspects of gameplay. Indeed, only in extreme cases would participants only play when they were playing competitively against each other. In contrast, this study focuses on hardcore players who devote considerable time not only to mastering the game but in cementing the game as canonical. I wish to expand on one particular angle of the two aforementioned studies. Voida and Greenberg say, one gamer suggested that styles of group gameplay extended beyond the game console itself into the ecology of media that surround the console games. Saul and Granta say the connection between gameplay at home and outside raises questions that stem from our sense that the division of gameplay, private and public, home and other homes of arcades, probably turns on a variety of cultural practices. The spaces available for the different types of play seem inherently grounded in a variety of norms. With SF4, there are both public and private spheres, example, competitions versus home play, but the ubiquity of internet media and communities is part of an ecology of tools that are constantly assembled to support the sport of head-to-head fighting games. On discourse analysis in this study, I draw on the discourse analysis (DA) perspective. Because DA has many definitions, I will clarify my theoretical framework. Please refer to Phillips and Hardy's book 10, from which the following are gleaned. DA is the analysis of discourse. Discourse is an interrelated set of texts and the practices of their production, dissemination, and reception that brings an object into being. Page 3. DA generally favors naturally occurring texts, in contrast to research interviews, which appear in the normal day-to-day activities of research subjects. Page 70. Research in DA is a methodology that both prescribes a particular perspective on the social world as well as a range of methods for studying that world. DA embraces a strong social constructivist epistemology, too. It posits that social reality is produced and made real through discourses, and social interactions cannot be fully understood without reference to the discourses that give them meaning. Page 3. Crucially, DA seeks not what the texts are saying but rather how the texts are saying what they say. DA explores how texts are made meaningful through processes and also how they contribute to the constitution of social reality by making meaning. Page 4. To accomplish this, deconstructing discourse requires not only examining the relationship between texts but their historical and social context. DA is also a critical theory. DA is useful for unpacking identity production, how dominating and emerging discourses in societies provide a repertoire of concepts which can be used strategically by members of the community to influence the social construction of identities and to support the institutionalization of practices and patterns of resource distribution. Page 32. Discourse can also be a form of social control. Some patterns of action are presented as more appropriate, natural, and legitimate than others. Page 30. These are facets of SF4 discourse that provide a focus for my analysis. Method. Like many SF4 players, I have experience playing SF2 in my own adolescence but little experience with the advanced SF3 game. Moreover, I was personally drawn to SF4 because it seemed to maintain its playability from SF2. I conducted participant observation fieldwork with an account on the Playstar Tie-in Network, PSN. I decided to become proficient with DHALSIM. In this sense, I approached the game as an ex-player might, perusing online videos, forums, and messaging other players on the PSN on how to get reacquainted and better with the game. I played over 9,000 online matches in SF4 since the PS3 game was first released in the US, the 2nd of December, 2009. As of writing, I have reached the online G1 rank level, 2nd under SG. Most people play best out of 3 rounds, each of which lasts up to 99 seconds. During my attempted mastery of the game, I created an archive of online resources. Hence, texts were collected in parallel to gameplay in a snowball sampling manner. Due to space constraints, instead of citing the precise URL for each text, I will elect to note simply the domain name. For the following texts that make up the majority of my corpus, I use the shorthand indicated in braces. All media with audio were transcribed. SRK www.shurayukin.com The message forum for discussing head-to-head fighting games. SRK eventhubs.com A frequently updated blog-like website about Capcom fighting games, includes strategy guides. iPlayWinner, www.iplaywinner.com a blog-like website dedicated to fighting games. It has podcasts featuring interviews with gamers. IPGutex.com website of professional player Gutex, a prominent promoter of the SF4 scene, community, and organizer of local competitions in Southern California. It has podcasts featuring interviews with gamers. GT YouTube channels. Many console gamers have posted their online matches on YouTube. One of the most popular ones is Darkside Effel's channel. Other channels like Arcade whose TLA capture a spectator's point of view through recorded interviews or matches. Username YT. It should be noted that these texts are highly interrelated. For example, eventhubs.com often posts articles from iPlaywinner. In addition to the main text of each datum, comments from viewers themselves on the texts form an integral part of my analysis, i.e., the context. Constructing the Street Fighter. Background and influx of old and new newbies. In this message to newcomers who feel unwelcome, Ionia writes an analogy to explain things from the oldies' point of view. SRK. Imagine a yearly physics symposium where people come together to discuss the very latest developments in the field. They are talking theories that can't be proven for another decade or might not be proven ever, or Figure 1, 2 user-generated images that ridicule the scrub. Why a past theory has become irrelevant and other such topics that people who haven't studied physics for a decade won't be able to understand. Then one year, a large group of high school physics students comes to the symposium for a field trip and starts asking a lot of basic physics questions. Questions like, how do you calculate acceleration? Or adding their 2 cents about theories when they don't know where the theories came from. Now, the regular symposium dudes are glad that the students are excited about learning physics, but a symposium isn't the place to be teaching basic physics formulas, let alone argue about theory without knowing the basic formulas. Many skills from SF2 are directly transferable to SF4. For instance, most of the complex joystick motions for super moves are identical. If one says DP with LK, it means dragon punch motion with short kick. This has brought about an influx of 2 populations of newbies, one that is revisiting the genre after a hiatus and another that is completely new to the genre. Notably, Ionio acknowledges the importance of new faces to fighting games by way of SF4, but also admonishes the dumbing down of the forums to teaching basics in the SRK forums. Constructing the scrub. By far, the most common epithet for a newbie is scrub. A scrub is perhaps best described by a widely circulated image posted in an SRK thread humorously titled KEN Fighter 4 Figure 1. The left-hand image depicts a typical scrubby KEN player. The flowchart symbolizes that a scrub does not learn from mistakes, is predictable, relies heavily on a single move, the dragon punch, or shoryuken, and is prone to anger. Indeed, meeting a flowchart KEN is commonly heard on SF4 forums. KEN and RYU are part of the original cast of the SF series and are considered the easiest characters to begin with. Indeed, based on my own online experience, KEN is perhaps one of the most commonly encountered characters that people choose. The right-hand image jokes about the ubiquity of KEN by altering the selection screen to only have KEN as a possible choice. Indeed, by simply using KEN, one must face the scrub label. Seth Killian, when asked about his favorite characters, replied, "Is it a sin to admit that I really like KEN in SF4? I know everyone is tired of all the KEN players." NerdSociety.com, however, the scrub label can apply to any unskilled player, regardless of character used. Another hallmark of scrubbiness is button mashing, which is described by Voida and Greenberg 13 as a characteristic of advanced games. Yet for fighting game players, button mashing can be indicative of inexperience. A free upgrade, the 24th of April, 2009, by Capcom gives SF4 a championship mode. This mode allows one to view video replays of matches. Interestingly, video Figure 2, YouTube of a KEN player button mashing, creating a rain of input displays to appear on the left in a desperate attempt to execute his ultra combo. Replays allow one to observe the joystick motions and button presses of the user during the match. Thus, gamers have posted YouTube videos mocking those who simply mash buttons in a panic. Figure 2. Sarcastic comments are rife. He's hitting literally every button, why doesn't he win? Haunts 82, YT. However, the issue of button mashing is complex. Button mashing is a technique in that it allows one to compensate for inexact timing or execution of moves. By pressing the same button multiple times, you increase your chances that you will hit the right timing. At the same time, you also increase your risk by executing unintended moves that can be punished, counter-attacked. One gamer defended mashing, "If you aren't doing the best to maximize your play because inputting several motions in a row to increase chances of a Reversal a move isn't your thing, then you are not playing to win SRK. Here, one can observe how gamers have constructed the scrub. In recorded matches, YouTube commentators often complain of scrubs doing random, ultras combos, extremely damaging super moves, or random uppercuts. These sardonic comments are also part of hype, described later. The scrub's expected behavior, a nearly robotic one, is openly mocked and disparaged through multiple texts, images, videos, and forums. However, gamers also realize that the scrub is impotent to the survival of SF4, as one professional said, "Without the scrubs, we are nothing. You don't want it to be all hardcore people playing each other, we want the scrubs to watch, man. Such an awesome feeling, man." GT. Constructing the hardcore in the arcade. As mentioned, online play is a relatively recent phenomenon in the SF franchise. To gamers, offline play is the only legitimate way to demonstrate one's skill in SF4. Ironically, the traditional way of realizing offline play, the video arcade, is difficult to accomplish with SF4. Capcom chose to not release SF4 to the US arcade market. Indeed, the declining sales of video arcades has been well documented at 14. Nevertheless, some US arcades have imported Japanese machines. Hardcore players therefore could get a jump start by playing SF4 in local arcades. I've been playing SF4 even when the game came out in the arcade. So, I probably have a lot of advantage over a lot of people because not everyone had the same opportunity as me to play in the arcade. They had to wait for the console version R.I.P. It required dedication to try and master SF4 before the console release. What made it even harder was the fact that there were so many players and so few SF4 machines. There were so many people lined up to play, you'd be lucky if you got 2 games in an hour. The relatively high cost of 75 cents or $1 per game made me really question if I was ever going to get any better. TornadoFlame.com. As early adopters of SF4, hardcore players can immediately manufacture the texts that will discipline casual players. Professional players stress the learning, training accomplished in arcades. Arcades are undoubtedly fora for communities of practice, COP9, where, by legitimate peripheral participation, players learn from their cohorts, gradually moving towards the core of experts. Senior gamers talk with pride about players they've mentored. I basically taught that kid from random arcade scrub into basically what he is now, at least for SoCal arcade hustler YT. Going to a tournament allows one to play a variety of people. The time you take to go to a tournament, you gotta make it all worth its while. You get to the tournament, fine. You're just going to sit in your hotel room after and play your same friend you played every day. It's not going to work that way. You gotta go around and, hey, you guys want to play a game? Or you come to my hotel room, we could play some. That's the only way you'll get better in a fighting game. Arcade hustler YT. Finding real competition means going to the arcade. Moreover, there is an impalpable rush when playing someone in person. Alex Vale, an old-school SF professional, said, "The experience from crushing my opponents on a 2-player, side-by-side arcade cabinet far outweighs online gaming. The younger generation will take time to overcome the type of pressure from playing someone up close and personal." Kotaku.com. Finally, pressure comes in the form of the environment itself. You're dealing with crowds and background noise you will need to get used to. I know when I did my first real tournament at Texas Showdown I was rather intimidated by the crowds of people and background noise. In some, only via membership in the video arcade's COP, going beyond the local environments of casual play with friends, can one grasp hardcore gaming practices. Notwithstanding, Capcom declared the arcade dead by not releasing an arcade version of SF4 to the US market. According to their senior director of communications, Chris Kramer, you don't need an arcade anymore, because EV Arion's Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 is essentially now an arcade, because they are all connected to each other. Arcades are no longer these dirty, weird places, it's now in your living room. Gamasutra.com. To Capcom, the online capability of SF4 is an appropriate substitute for arcade play. While we will discuss the legitimacy of online play, first I will recount the tribulations of moving from arcade to console, offline tournaments. Constructing Hope as Street Fighter IV. A pivotal moment in SF4's legitimacy occurred when GameStop held its first official US SF4 tournament, April 2009, also inviting the Japanese and Korean champions. A wild-card player, perhaps the most famous SF gamer of all time, Daigo aka The Beast, also came. Justin Wong, a longtime professional fighting gamer, won the US Nationals and went on to beat the Japanese and Korean champions. However, he lost to Daigo. Justin Wong is actually known to most casual players via a YouTube video where he loses to Daigo in a particularly spectacular manner in the 2004 Evolution Championship Series, EVO. EVO is considered the premier fighting game tournament in the US. The GameStop tournament was arranged by first holding local tournaments in their retail stores. Yet, GameStop officials failed to understand that SF4 was not just another console game by failing to understand the importance of joysticks. woopa.tv, the real issue was the lack of joysticks. Because up until the grand finals, GameStop, they made the rules. So they did not allow us to use anything but the stock, standard Xbox 360 controllers. And if you were lucky, you would get a working one because a lot of the stores were using the Xbox 360 kiosk that was already in the store. So they were using the kiosk controllers, which were usually half broken. So even though we had an entire community of players who had sticks, bought sticks from GameStop, and they bought the same sticks they gave away as a round 3 prize, and we couldn't use those in the tournament. The fact of the matter is, those of us who play SF competitively and seriously, we play on joysticks. If you look at the top 10% of SF players, they are all playing on sticks. First of all, there's a kind of a respect issue, I guess. It's hard for a top player who's playing on stick to take a player who's playing on a pad seriously. It is revealing here that the hardware one uses is emblematic of seriousness, competitiveness, and respect. To be sure, many of the combos, a string of moves done in quick succession, in SF4 are difficult and physically painful to carry out without a joystick. Crucially, the interpretations of GameStop and professional gamers are at odds here. For GameStop, SF4 is like any other console game that should be more than playable on stock controllers. For competitors, bring your own joystick is the standard procedure for all SF tournaments. Quality joysticks are not cheap. Most players have adopted the Mad Catz joysticks, which are either $80 or $150, nearly twice the amount for the game itself. Purchasing the joystick signifies that one seriously wishes to improve his or her skills and join the ranks of professionals. A tournament without joysticks led players to believe it to be a trivial, inconsequential tournament. A lot of the best players didn't enter because everybody was like, well, you can't play on sticks, this tournament is going to suck. woopa.tv. Far from it, the finals turned out to be a very professional, well-run performance that gained an enormous amount of media exposure. Gutex exclaimed, SF4 was on a massive screen, everybody was cheering, there were, I dunno, 1,500 people there, who knows, there was a lot of people there. And everybody had an amazing time, everybody got to see SF4 at its finest. From a spectator's point of view, we were like right down there in front, and every single match, we would be yelling and screaming, jumping up and down. I mean, our heads were exploding every single time. I mean, the crowd, you see everybody with their hands up doing the raise the RUFUS, but play on the raise the roof gesture. From the Luther Campbell rap song by the same name, B. Figure 3, the GameStop SF4 tournament with Justin Wong and the audience raising the roof to emulate RUFUSS Ultra combo. Top, Kineda.com, bottom, Temps YT. Cause Justin hit an Ultra. I mean, when do you see that in other games? When have you seen that in SF? Never. It was absolutely incredible. woopa.tv. This is in sharp contrast with previous tournaments which typically attracted 30 to 40 people. In fact, raising the RUFUS Figure 3 highlights the performative aspects of head-to-head fighting games. Justin Wong acknowledges that he sees an analogy to pro wrestling. I think gaming will be on a more serious level if it's done correctly, because if you just show a match on TV, no one's going to really sit through it. They want to see the expression, the hype, the shit-talking. They just want to see something, they want to see a show. They want to see something like World Wrestling. They want to see rivalries, also. Why do people watch wrestling even though it's supposedly fake? It's entertainment. So if video games are part of entertainment level, where people just talk shit during a match, or they do something crazy that makes everyone goes wild. They just want to see all that type of stuff. Arcade Hustler YT. The Japanese champion, Iyo, was astonished at the hype in the tournament, the crowd, the energy is just crazy. It's just never like this. In Japan. The raging excitement makes me super nervous. I have to go to the bathroom. Capcom-unity.com. Thus, with the surprising turnout and subsequent media coverage, SF4 has come to embody a new hope for the fighting game franchise. This hope must be viewed in light of the huge disappointments professional gaming organizations have experienced in becoming a profitable enterprise. 1. This is a common thread among many texts we encountered before SF4. There was definitely rivalry between arcades. This is the Family Fun Ascento guys, this is the Arcade Infinity guys, and stuff like that. But with SF4 now, everybody's together. Everybody's together, Arcade Hustler YT. One old-timer sees SF4 as bringing people back together like they used to gather in arcades. You go into a regular convenience store, play SF2 for a quarter, and now we don't even have arcades anymore. So, these kids don't know what it's like to have to pay every single time to play a game. We didn't have consoles back then. The fighting game scene has decreased, but it's growing back up. So, SF4 is bringing everybody back together, Arcade Hustler YT. A prominent YouTube uploader of online matches explains, well good, I'm glad that my videos have turned on some people who normally wouldn't play SF or fighting games to that scene. That's the whole fucking idea. I haven't played SF2 since it came out in 1991 or so. Good to know that that's happening, Darkside FLYT. The GameStop tournament influenced this player. The tournament happened and I was blown away at the enormity of this game. So many people came just to watch, even though I wasn't a player of the game, but I was getting serious thoughts about returning out of retirement to learn this game. SRK. Capcom's purposeful, retrograde design of SF4 created hope for a dying game genre. Braggadocio. The previous section discussed performance on the public stage. The drama and braggadocio involved in more intimate quarters, example, the living room, is also continually maintained by members of the fighting community. This takes form in hype. The word hype has no single meaning but is found over and over again in my texts. I will discuss offline and online aspects of hype. Hype offline. One can build a hype. Justin Wong, after losing to Daigo, proclaimed, at this year's EVO tournament, I will be the one to beat, not Daigo Imahara. It will be there that I will truly defend my status. TwinGalaxies.com. While in the past the drama of hype was heard in arcade halls or through traditional gossip channels, hype is traversed and continued through online texts. In a rather bizarre, widely circulated interview of Gamernook YT, Justin Wong is flanked by two of his supporters, one of which is his manager, on a dimly lit sidewalk. With himself silent, Justin's supporters decry that his loss has nothing to do with his skill and that he will emerge victorious in the next EVO. Indeed, part of Justin's rhetoric was that the match with Daigo was simply an exhibition match that had no official standing. Daigo was not the Japanese champion and merely a guest contestant. Several debates on YouTube, SRK and EventHubs.com surrounded Justin's sportsmanship. Did he or did he not shake the Japanese champion's hand after he won? The online viewer is never sure what true animosity exists due to grandstanding. That is, however, beside the point. The production of entertainment value through narrative drama is of concern here and players are cognizant of that fact. Hype renders controversy and debate. Hype can also occur during a tournament in the form of excitement from the crowd. One widely circulated YouTube video features a local tournament where Liston lost because he celebrated his win too early, thinking he had already defeated his opponent. His friends quickly surrounded him, jumping up and down in excitement. Here, hype backfired, and Liston laments that his humiliating loss is what made him famous in gaming circles. First of all, if you've ever been in a circle and you have 50 people around you screaming at the same time, right, the hypeness is like crazy. He already left, so honestly like he walked away from the game. Technically, I should have said something to dispute the loss. He actually walked away from the game, he actually gave up, right? But I was really mad, I didn't think about it. Interview, so the hype backfired. So I mean, like, what am I going to do? It's just a game, it's not real life. It's funny, I've been around for years, right, but barely people ever know me. Until now we have a lot of players right now. Arcade Hustler YT. Curiously, when particularly intense offline match videos that only show you what appears on the TV are posted on YouTube, people often wish that the spectators were recorded as well. In a celebrated video where Mike Ross pulls out a clutch comeback win followed by a dominating match with particularly flashy combos, the following comments were listed: "Wish we could hear the crowd, I bet they went nuts." And "Is there a video with the commentators and the crowd in the background?" Arcade Infinity YT. Trash talking is an essential component of SF4 hype. Examples include player man thrusting his hips back and forth to the audience after raping, soundly beating, his opponent in a local tournament. Audience members rooting for a player will often vocally mimic, in sync, the punching, throwing, kicking sound effects when their player is beating his other opponent into submission. In many cases, good-natured insults during play are peppered with sparse compliments like a nice when the opponent does something clever. Players make it clear that insults aren't personal, it wasn't me versus him, it was the hype, Arcade Hustler YT. Players who know each other will naturally increase the level of trash talking but similarly often end the match with a handshake, hug and a good shit jweehweet.tv. In another thread, there was some controversy as to Justin's literal in-the-face chest thumping when defeating Mike Ross for the GameStop US Nationals. One YouTuber tracked down Mike Ross to a SF art exhibit. Jab strong fierce and asked him about it. "When one gets in your face, why didn't you do anything?" Mike Ross joked, "He's a good person, nothing personal, I guess. He got me fair and square, he got me, he deserved to talk trash. We'll all have to wait for the rematch, I have no right to talk trash, the dude is beating me at Evo, if I beat this dude, I'm taking my pants off, my shirt and everything, I'm jumping all up and down the stage and everything. I'm going to go crazy." Potato Head 214 YT. YouTube elongates the trash talking. Closely tied with ribbing is territoriality. I was struck with the many references to East Coast EC and West Coast WC rivalries. Mike Ross, a WC player, remarked on his culture shock, "The scene in the West is like the polar opposite of the scene from the East. Yeah, on the West like everybody is kind of like just relaxed, kind of laid back. They are real humble. Yeah, they play SF, they talk about it a lot. It's a really friendly environment. It's not how it works out here in the EC. Me and Gutex landed and they are mad at us because we're not talking enough trash when we are playing. They are like, oh, that's not how we do it over here. They are trying to make us adapt to their lifestyle, it's pretty intense, they play all day, every day. They just stay in each other's faces. It's aggressive the average person would crack with all this trash talking." Arcade Hustler YT. Here, one player endeavors to become the best ABEL player on the coast. ABEL, I'm going to stay with him. I'm going to try to be the best ABEL in East Coast. Fuck that, there's only 3 me, Havoc and Justin doesn't count, he's Street Fighter, a world champion, he's not from New York. Arcade Hustler YT. Finally, territoriality is also a uniting force against the Japanese. To many US game players, the Japanese have an aura of perfection, discipline, and invincibility. You go to their random arcades in Japan, and you're playing against some guy in a business suit, with his leg crossed, you know, right? With the cigarette going right there. And, you know, his arms are up, he's not like his back is all concentrated and focused on the screen. No, he's toking a toke while you're getting hit by Raging Demon, super move. Very calm, very poised GT. Hype in the GameStop National Tournament had P.O. Plea chanting USA and raising the roof with Justin Wong, Figure 3. Indeed, all coasts are united when faced with foreigners. When Justin Wong defeated the last West Coast player, I felt disappointment in the failure of our West Coast SF4 players to bring home the championship, but immediately I supported him, hoping he would defeat all the other countries. SRK. Hype is not tied to a specific geographic location, it is a phenomenon both dynamic and contextual. Hype online. How does this translate to online play? Hype is only as good as its timing. Insults are hurled at the heat of the moment. What are you going to do now, huh? Or immediately after the match, good game, dude. In the PlayStation Network, PSN, there is little opportunity to do effective hype. The PSN allows one to send email messages to others as well as add friends, basically a contact list of people you've sparred with. While one can connect a keyboard to the PS3 to facilitate typing, many players actually don't bother to. Typing with a joystick is cumbersome. In my online matches, by far the most popular message after a match was "GG, good game." Second most popular were insults, often laced with profanities, accusing one of being cheap. After a match, most people quickly move on to the next match. While playing the next match, I would often receive a message from a previous match's opponent, but by then I had forgotten the particulars of that match. While you can message during the match, you will also lose control of the game, guaranteeing a loss to your current opponent. In the lobby mode, the PSN has limited options for communication. One can select different emoticon icons: smiling, thumbs up, laughing, angry, sad. PSN does support voice chat, but most players did not use this and limited it to people they knew. Each character in SF4 can perform a taunt action during the match. The taunt does no damage and in fact leaves the player vulnerable to attacks. So trash talking via taunts is a particularly gutsy form of trash talking, but again does not have the same parallelism that verbal and gestured insults have. These are a far cry from the performative aspects that are part of offline SF4 play. Indeed, the online world seems a paltry substitute for the rich opportunities of interaction found in an arcade. But there are online mechanisms to compensate. People who post their online matches on YouTube, not a trivial task, often receive comments from the people with whom they fought with. Darksiderphil, DSB, is perhaps the most famous YouTube match uploader, and also a professional gamer of SF, because of his colorful, emotional commentary. He posted a match and later received the following highest-rated comment from his opponent Lakeearth: "Thanks for uploading the video. And yeah, HONDA's neutral jumping fierce punch is the only move I know that stuffs ZANGIEFS, sick damn lariat, so I spammed it to perfection, GG." DSB replies, "At least you're an intelligent player and I can accept losing to one. GG man." What is perhaps even more interesting is when both parties post their videos. In one celebrated example, Fatsax, known for play in a relatively obscure character, ROSE and DSB fought each other. Unlike DSB, Fatsax is a silent player, making no commentary. Under Fatsax's YouTube comment stream, the highest-rated comment mocked DSB's losing attitude. This comment contains timestamped hyperlinks annotated with DSB's voice commentary that skip to the appropriate segment in Fatsax's YouTube. Here's a transcript of DSB's commentary, pre-match: "Alright, this guy's supposed to be better than me and he picked ROSE, oh, who the fuck do I pick? Pick my boy BALROG, that's what I'll do. BALROG versus ROSE, I have no idea. This is my first time ever fighting a ROSE, so I guess we'll just have to see what happens. 020, oh my god. 032, oh what the hell. Dizzy. 038, a grave digger that bad, huh? 048, I don't even care. DSB just got hit by an ultra combo. One of the most commonly requested features from Capcom is a spectator system. This would allow participants to view matches as they occur. One could then await their turn and play winner. This would be closer to the queuing behavior in arcades. SF4's championship mode allows people to add points indicating if a previously recorded match is funny, amazing, or beautiful, but this is just as limited as the emoticons previously mentioned and certainly does not. In another infamous round with WONDERWAFFLE 407, DSB lost in 2 perfect matches. He did not do any damage to his opponent. While DSB posted the video online, labeling it Part 25, he disabled comments. However, YouTube spectators quickly posted comments regarding video Part 25 on the previously posted videos. Part 24, comment thread, haha, Phil DSB knows he fucked up in Part 25 so he disabled comments. Indeed, hype is inescapable online. Identities and hence territoriality are lost in the PSN. Everyone has a unique username, and not everyone can match the nickname to which they are known in the arcade community with the PSN username. Territoriality is also similarly lost online. The SF4 interface allows one to choose a preferred language, ostensibly to facilitate voice chat. However, while the language settings can hint at location, it is by no means reliable. Instead, in online play, I observed many people appending _metadata to their nicknames. For example, SRK, UAE, and EMP indicate respectively affiliation with an online community, geographic location, United Arab Emirates, and tournament team name. YouTube uploaders occasionally fight famous players online unknowingly, and the higher-rated comments are from gamers who are able to inform the uploader of the opponent's true identity. When Fatsax uploaded a video of his match with Cali Power, a commenter noted, "Yeah, no shame in losing to Vale at all." When DSB uploaded a lost match, one person wrote, "Isn't EMP Sabin Arturo's gamertag?" However, one commenter posited, "I think he knew it was Arturo, he just didn't want to say anything since he didn't want random scrubs trying to add him as a friend." The findings here highlight that games need to be time and context sensitive to spectator and opponent feedback. Messages to opponents should somehow remind the recipient which game match he or she is referring to. Unlike the persistent environments of massively multiplayer online role-playing games, MMORPGs, the point of reference is USU ally just matches, which are transient. Games should support hype, both insults and compliments. Additionally, spectator feedback and interaction ought to be real-time. Part of the excitement of gameplay involves knowing that others are viewing your match. It increases the stakes and rewards for winning, while opening up opportunities for performativity. The legitimacy of online play. One issue of concern among constituents of SF players is the legitimacy of online play. With consoles now an accepted standard for playing in tournaments, the next question is whether a player's skill can be accurately determined through online records alone. SF4 has a battle point system. If you defeat opponents with higher battle points, you gain more points and vice versa. Conversely, losing to an opponent with lower battle points will result in losing a greater deal of points. SF4 allows one to peruse the rankings according to accumulated battle points. Two forms of problematic play emerged: rage quitters and those who modified standard rules of game fighting. Rage quitting refers to opponents who, upon realizing that their defeat is imminent, will shut down, perhaps in a rage, their machine to prevent battle point loss, thereby robbing the potential winner of points. Initially, Capcom did not penalize rage quitters. When EventHubs.com posted the top battle point scorers, comments were harsh. "You can look up the top players' YouTube account if you want to see some matches. Also prepare to see no link combos, no wise focus attacks, no clever ultra setups, and no sweet super cancels." The worst part is when they know they are doing it and they are getting beaten by a guy who's better than them only to disconnect to save their rank. It's pathetic. I mean, if you're gonna lose, take the loss the legit way, not using some BS tactic to save whatever face. A new website propped up called the Bad Loser Wall of Shame at the badloserswallofshame.blogspot.com. Figure 4, the Bad Loser Wall of Shame Rage Quitters website. Where people posted screenshots of the moment when a person disconnects, rage quitted, or their interactions with rage quitters. Figure 4. One can count who are the most blatant offenders. Usernames are in a tag cloud. Interestingly, people take screenshots of message exchanges with rage quitters, often revealing their scrubby mindset. If you're not threatening their dominance at the machine, the scrub doesn't care what the hell you're doing. It's only when you're doing something they can't beat that he bothers to drop phrases like cheap SRK. Such websites are lucky for disciplining newcomers. In another form of problematic play, some people attempt to ratchet up points quickly by reducing the time limit. This encourages players to deal damage and then run away until time runs out. The winner is the one with the most health. One can change the time limit at the last moment, making the opponent unaware of the shortened time. In an infamous Darkside Eiffel DSB video, DSB encounters a KEN player and expresses disbelief once he realizes the time limit has been set to 30 seconds per round. Yes, just do random uppercuts, jump backwards, or abuse the fucking rules of the game that let you change the fucking time limit of a match. Oh my god, he won because of bullshit. What a scrub. Why do they let you change the fucking time limit in ranked matches? Look how many points he has, because Capcom fucked up and lets you do stupid shit like that. For gamers, losing to undeserving players is the greatest affront. In response to such outcry, Capcom has given each person a disconnection ratio statistic, though it does not penalize points accrued. However, for many players, the issue of lag, packet latency in internet connections will always invalidate online play. The netcode of SF4 is decried by many as faulty. David Serlin, a prominent game designer, noted that when lag inevitably happens in an online fighting game, there are different ways to handle it. Some SF4 matches I played had large input delay, maybe as high as 15 frames. This is the time between your button press and seeing the effect happen. Adding input delay is really the worst way to handle lag. Serlin.net. Gamers. Figure 5, the conclusion of a Capcom online tournament match. Consistently mentioned that they have honed their execution skills and lag interferes with this. Lag in games sometimes favor characters, example, Honda, who has high stamina, who can afford to make input errors. Gamers are forced to become scrubs when faced with lag. I find myself mashing moves in laggy games due to input being dropped left and right. You really can't use online games as a judge of a person's real skills. Maybe they mash because mashing for online games equals wins SRK. In tournaments, the hardware specifications of each machine must be identical to ensure fair play, but lag is highly variable and dependent on a number of external, uncontrollable variables such as location and bandwidth. As a result, many players only use online matches for practice, not to achieve a rank that is respected by peers. While the YouTube videos somewhat create an environment of hype between players and amongst the spectators, they elucidate how the limited communication options among players gives rise to misunderstandings on what proper etiquette is. In a series of matches between DSP and Free1UP, both players recorded their matches and provided audio commentary. After winning a match, DSP says, "Now I'm going to play my tournament rules." Which basically means if I win a match, I have to keep that character the next match. I don't know if he's going to do that. I'm not really going to hold him to it. But he is speaking to an imaginary opponent on the other side. Free1UP is unaware of DSP's concern about tournament rules and simply commentates on the match play itself. In a first, Capcom held an online European tournament from May 2009. They made sure to address rage quitters. Competitors may not disconnect mid-fight, as all disconnections are logged and offenders may be expelled from the tournament at Capcom's sick discretion. Capcom.com. Despite the online format, the finals were held at a live event. While it remains to be seen how legitimate this tournament will be, a YouTube video posted by a contestant, SmallFry14, illustrates how lag persists in negating online play. At the conclusion of the match, Figure 5 shows SmallFry14 displaying a thumbs-up emoticon, 1, perhaps indicating good game, but because the ready text is grayed out, 2, he knows his opponent may not see it due to lag. So he waits, hovering over the "Leave this session" dialog box, 3. On the bottom, the ready text becomes active, 4, his opponent, Her0 Nakamura, replies with an angry emoticon, 5, perhaps indicating frustration over lag during the match, and SmallFry14 finally quits the lobby. The two bars, 6, express the less than ideal connection quality. SmallFry14 is being especially polite because he is in an official online tournament, and this video illustrates how players are acutely aware of how lag limits not only gameplay itself but social interaction out and about the game. Discussion. Recreating the arcade, performing Braggadocio from the texts I have extracted, one might simply view SF4 as a very vulgar, aggressive sport. Indeed, I believe viewers may be initially turned off by the trash talking exhibited in offline matches. Comment exchanges, temps YT such as, TSK Justin big, fat, giant douche. What horrible sportsmanship. Uneasy face, followed by, I'm pretty sure Justin and Micah buds didn't anyone see the end, where they hug. Why is everyone hating on Justin? Reflect the clash between newbies, unfamiliar with the arcade culture, and oldies. Yet, I wish to draw attention to the fact that SF4 represents an interesting mix of using the computer-mediated communication to bridge the public and private spheres of gaming. Reading the texts, it became apparent that by itself the gaming console provides little of the competitive gaming scene. While the PlayStation and Xbox may approach PCs in computational power, for many it is not regarded as a PC, hidden away when not in use, 11, and without traditional peripherals. Thus, the console is a severely handicapped communicative device. Gamers have worked around this by enrolling an ensemble of actors to recreate the arcade. This study described how spectators are a vital component in competitive head-to-head fighting games. These results certainly expand on Duchesneau et al.'s 5 observations that World of Warcraft is like playing pinball in a crowded arcade, where spectators gather around the machine to observe the best players. Yet, unlike MMORPGs, games like SF4 cannot readily reproduce such an environment simply because the game designers have not envisioned the spectators themselves to become representational objects inside the game itself. In SF4 there are no virtual characters roaming about meeting in virtual cities. Instead, the online features, as designed by Capcom, are simply tacked onto the game to provide a conduit for direct head-on-head fighting. Thus, unlike WoW where complex, endemic social norms can arise, the dearth of communication options with consoles limits the degree of such development. MMORPGs with a complex tapestry of tales. The storylines behind the SF4 characters are shallow and of 10 ridiculed. Paradoxically, SF4 is a very social activity in a relatively unsocial game. Despite this, I have shown that gamers have used a combination of online technologies to constantly augment their console to recreate the arcade experience. When gamers want to find other competitive gamers to spar with, they often don't go searching for random players online through the PSN. Rather, they go to forums, post their PSN username, and ask if you main exclusively use a good sim DHALSIM, get at me and let's spar, smiley face. SRK. When professional players wish to speak about a recent match, they don't message each other through the console's cumbersome interface, but instead chat on SRK or the YouTube channel. When potential online spectators want to see a match and at R.I.P, they simply can't do this through the console other than hurl direct one-on-one insults at each other without anyone knowing the better. But they can shame online players through websites that highlight rage quitters or scrubs, or they can add disparaging or good-natured insults on YouTube. Dalsgaard and Hansen 4 argue that, in performing Perception, not only do you play the game and perform for those around you, you are also an implicit spectator of your own AC tie-in since your own actions will be the ones that other people are experiencing. Page 2. Even if there is no actual spectator but only a potentiality for an actual spectator, there will be some sort of imagined spectator. Page 21. The extensive appropriation of digital tools speaks to how hardcore gamers are very much aware that their activities will be consumed by an imagined, online audience of newbies and oldies. Indeed, hardcore gamers seeking to establish an online identity often invest much time and effort to fashion home-rigged video systems to record and post matches. YouTube profiles even list the specific camera equipment, video cards, etc. that are used. Future games might facilitate direct links from console games to external online communities. Example, allow players to jump to the console to challenge each other from forums. Allow players to directly upload videos to YouTube. Legitimizing Street Fighter 4. I have also shown how the online and offline world intersect to legitimize SF4 as the new hope for fighting games. Online technologies are used to make SF4's ubiquity known and to extend the performative aspects, R.I.P, of competitive gaming. In SF4, performance implicitly disciplines, the actors ingrain arcade values onto the console genre. The incident with joysticks in the GameStop tournament highlighted the conflict arising when parties ignore competitive gamer values. Online mediums are used to spread what the proper competitive fighter is, encouraging newbies to break out of the scrub mold. At the same time, SF4 faces new challenges because its lower entry level has successfully brought both newbies and oldies together. As mentioned, while many of these oldies are newbies to SF4, they are not newbies to SF in general. When novices endeavor to tackle SF4, the texts they encounter have been authored by the hardcore, professional arcade gamers who are also early adopters. Thus, the hardcore are privileged in constructing and shaping a new generation of SF4 players. The expert players recognize that the survival of the franchise requires a large audience that includes newbies. SF4 is a text of hope for many people who were disillusioned with SF3 and Capcom's numerous variants on SF2. Those very people actively seek to capitalize on this hope and create a new demand for fighting games that directly draw from the traditional competitive fighting scene in arcades. Gutex and other gaming professionals, for example, do online mentoring of pupils. This is controversial because They charge money for their services. Mentoring was typically free for those who participated in the COP of the arcade space. Nonetheless, texts underscore how gamers who play online exclusively rarely place high in tournaments. Edmar happy smiley. The people at the top of Evo, you expect them to be there. Agutex happy smiley. Right, there was nobody that had been playing on Xbox Live that made it GT. From the hardcore's perspective, online tutoring with experts is a necessary compromise for those who seek to master SF4 but lack access to a neighborhood arcade. Indeed, subsequent fighting games may do well to explore methods to allow novices, experts to learn from and meet their peers online that go beyond what SF4 currently offers. Conclusion: the happy coincidence of various digital mediums ideally suited for amplifying the arcade's culture into the gamer consciousness allows anyone to imagine being part of the hardcore scene. By encountering these virtual texts, I myself could not help but become mesmerized by the discourse of SF4, one of skill, hope, braggadocio, and principles. Here, I have taken a first look into how new versions of an old genre have had to grow up in an online age. Future fighting games' survival depends on supporting both what these texts say and the very mechanisms by which such texts say what they say. Acknowledgements. I am indebted to Steve Abrams, Lily Irani, Yongming Cao, Kavita Philip, Yan Wang, and Hiroko Walensky for their editorial assistance. References 1. S. Andrews. Bit-tech.net feature, Does Professional Gaming Have a Future? http://www.bit-tech.net/gaming/2009/04/04/10 http://www.bit-tech.net/gaming/2009/04/04/10 The Future of Professional Gaming. 1. The Future of Professional Gaming. 1, April 2009. 2. P. L. Berger and T. Luckman. The Social Construction of Reality, a Treatise in the Sociology of Knowledge. Anchor, 1st edition, July 1967. 3. G. Cooper and J. Bowers. Representing the User, Notes on the Disciplinary Rhetoric of HCI. In P. J. Thomas, Editor, The Social and Interactional Dimensions of Human-Computer Interfaces, pages 49 to 66. Cambridge University Press, 1995. 4. P. Dalsgaard and L. K. Hansen. Performing Perception, Staging Aesthetics of Interaction. ACM Toche, 15, 3133, 2008. 5. N. Duchesneau, N. Yi, E. Nicol, and R. J. Moore. Alone Together. Exploring the Social Dynamics of Massively Multiplayer Online Games. In Proc. of CHI 06, pages 407 to 416, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, 2006. ACM. 6. C. Ferguson. The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, a Meta-Analytic. Review of Positive and Negative Effects of Violent Video Games. Psychiatric Quarterly, 78, 4309-316, December 2007. 7. S. Fisher. The Amusement Arcade as a Social Space for Adolescents, an Empirical Study. Journal of Adolescence, 18, 171-86, February 1995. 8. B. Flynn. Geography of the Digital Hearth. Information, Communication and Society, 6, 4551, 2003. 9. J. Laven E. Wenger. Situated Learning, Legitimate Peripheral Participation. Cambridge University Press, 1991. 10. N. Phillips and C. Hardy. Discourse Analysis, Investigating Processes of Social Construction. Sage, 2nd edition, 2002. 11. A. Saul and R. Greinter. Let's Get Physical. In, Out and Around the Gaming Circle of Physical Gaming at Home. CSCW, 16, 1199-229, April 2007. 12. H. Sugimoto. Capcom Financial Results, May 2009. 13. A. Voida and S. Greenberg. We All Play, the Console Game as a Computational Meeting Place. In Proc. of CHI 09, pages 1559 to 1568, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, 2009. ACM. 14. D. Williams. A Brief Social History of Gameplay. In P. Vorderer and J. Bryant, editor, Playing Video Games, Motives, Responses, and Consequences, pages 197 to 212, Lawrence Elbaum Associates, 2006. 370,